I never thought a single night could change everything I believed about myself. My name is Daniel Park, and I'm 28 years old. For most of my life, I've learned to live with the stares, the whispers, and the barely concealed disgust when people first see my face. The scars that cover the left side of my face and neck are the permanent reminder of a fire that took my parents when I was 12. I survived, but the burns left their mark, both physically and emotionally. I work as a software developer for a mid-sized tech company. It's the perfect job for someone like me. I can hide behind a computer screen, attend meetings via video calls with my camera off, and avoid the uncomfortable moments when people see me for the first time. My colleagues know me through my work, not my appearance, and that's exactly how I prefer it. But my best friend Marcus had other ideas. "Come on, Daniel," he pleaded for the third time that week. "You can't live like a hermit forever. Sarah has this friend who's really nice. She doesn't care about looks, I promise." I'd heard that before. People always said they didn't care about appearances until they actually saw me. Then came the forced smiles, the quick excuses, and the relief in their eyes when they could finally escape. But Marcus was persistent, and I was tired of disappointing the one person who'd stuck by me through everything. So I agreed to the blind date. The restaurant he chose was upscale, the kind of place I never went to because I hated the attention my scars attracted in public. The Crown and Oak was known for its private dining rooms and discreet service. Marcus had assured me he'd reserved one of the intimate booths in the back, away from prying eyes. As I walked through the main dining area, I kept my head down, my hand instinctively moving to touch the scars on my neck, a nervous habit I'd never been able to break. "Reservation for Park," I told the hostess, a young woman with kind eyes who didn't flinch when she looked at me. Small victories. "Of course, sir. Right this way." She led me through the restaurant to a semi-private booth near the back. The woman sitting there was stunning. Dark hair cascading over her shoulders, designer clothes, perfectly manicured nails tapping impatiently on her phone. When she looked up and saw me approaching, her expression shifted from boredom to shock to poorly concealed revulsion in the span of 3 seconds. "Hi," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm Daniel. You must be Jessica." She stared at me, her mouth slightly open. For a moment, I thought she might actually be kind about it, that she might at least stay for one drink before making her excuses. I was wrong. Orchestrated dramatic rejection scene, while building narrative tension. Boa, essa criando a cena de Rigico. Preciso tornar isso dramatico mas realista. Vou continuar construindo a tensão. "You," she said, standing abruptly. Her voice was loud enough that several nearby diners turned to look. "You're the blind date? Is this some kind of joke?" "I'm sorry, No!" She cut me off, grabbing her purse. I don't know what Marcus was thinking, but this is not happening. I have standards. Each word was like a physical blow. I'd experienced rejection before, but never quite so publicly, so cruelly. "Please," I said quietly, "just sit down. We can talk." "Talk? Look at you." She gestured at my face with disgust. I agreed to a blind date. Not this. God, I need to leave before someone thinks we're actually together. She pushed past me, her shoulder hitting mine hard enough to make me stumble. The other diners were definitely watching now, some with pity, others with that morbid curiosity people have when witnessing someone else's humiliation. I stood there, frozen, wanting nothing more than to disappear. But before I could move, a soft voice behind me said, "Sir, perhaps you'd like to sit down?" It was a waiter, an older man with gentle eyes and a Korean accent. His name tag read Mr. Kim. "I think I should just go," I mumbled, already turning toward the exit. "Please," he said, his hand lightly touching my arm. "Give me just one moment." There was something in his voice that made me stop. He disappeared into the restaurant, moving with surprising speed for someone his age. I stood there awkwardly, aware of the eyes still on me, wondering if I could just slip out without causing more of a scene. Mr. Kim returned less than a minute later, slightly out of breath. "Sir, I need to tell you something important. There's been a terrible mistake." "I know," I said bitterly. "Trust me, I'm well aware." "No," he said urgently. "You don't understand. That woman, she wasn't your date. Your actual date has been looking for you all night. I stared at him, certain I'd misheard. What? Your date? Mr. Kim repeated. She's been waiting in one of our private dining rooms upstairs. She arrived an hour ago. That woman you just met. She was here for a different reservation, a different blind date entirely. There was a mix-up with the names. My mind raced, trying to process what he was saying. But she knew the name. She said Marcus. The other gentleman's name is also Marcus, Mr. Kim explained quickly. Both reservations were under Park. Both were blind dates arranged by friends named Marcus. It's an unfortunate coincidence. When she came down looking for her date, I directed her to you by mistake. I'm so sorry. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. All of this, the humiliation, the cruel words, had been based on a misunderstanding where I swallowed hard. Where is she? My actual date? Mr. Kim's face softened. She's been waiting in the Pearl Room upstairs. She's asked about you several times. She was worried something had happened to you. A mixture of hope and terror flooded through me. Someone had been waiting for me? Worried about me? I don't know if I can. I said honestly, after what just happened. Mr. Park, Mr. Kim said gently, I've worked here for 23 years. I've seen hundreds of first dates. And I can tell you with absolute certainty that the young woman upstairs is someone special. She's been looking at every person who walks by, hoping it's you. She hasn't checked her phone once. She hasn't complained. She's just waited with hope. Something in his words touched a part of me I thought was dead, the part that still believed someone might see past my scars. Okay, I whispered. Take me to her. The Pearl Room was exactly what its name suggested, an intimate space decorated in soft whites and silvers, with delicate pearl-like beads hanging from the ceiling. As we approached, I could see a figure sitting at the table, her back to us. She had auburn hair pulled into a casual ponytail, and she was wearing a simple blue dress. Nothing like Jessica's designer outfit, but somehow more elegant in its simplicity. Miss Sullivan, Mr. Kim said softly, your date has arrived. She turned, and I braced myself for the inevitable reaction. But when her eyes met mine, something extraordinary happened. She smiled. Not a forced smile, not a polite smile. A genuine, warm, reaching her eyes smile that made my breath catch. Daniel, she said, standing up. Finally, I was starting to think Marcus had given you the wrong address. She had a slight southern accent and the kind of face that seemed incapable of deception. Open, kind, with laugh lines around her eyes that suggested she smiled often. Ah, yes, I'm Daniel. I'm so sorry I'm late. There was a misunderstanding. No worries, she said, gesturing to the seat across from her. I'm Emma Sullivan. It's really nice to meet you. I sat down slowly, still waiting for the other shoe to drop. But Emma just settled back into her chair and picked up her menu. So I'm starving, she said. Marcus told me you're a software developer? That must be interesting. You don't... I couldn't finish the sentence, my hand moving unconsciously to my scars. Emma looked at me directly, and there was no pity in her eyes, no disgust, no discomfort. Don't what? My scars, I said quietly. They don't bother you? She tilted her head, considering the question seriously. Should they? Marcus mentioned you'd been in a fire when you were young. That must have been terrifying. But I'm more interested in who you are now than what happened to you in the past. It was such a simple statement, but it shattered something inside me, some wall I'd built to protect myself from hope. Most people... I started, then stopped. Most people can't get past them. Then most people are idiots, Emma said matter-of-factly, making me laugh despite everything. Look, Daniel, I'm a pediatric nurse. I work with burn victims all the time, including kids. I've learned that scars just tell us someone survived something. They're not ugly, they're proof of strength. You're the first person to ever say something like that to me. I admitted, well, I'm not most people, she said with a grin. Now, can we please order? Because I might start gnawing on this bread basket if we don't get some real food soon. And just like that, the tension broke. We ordered dinner. She got the salmon, I got the steak, and we started talking. Really talking. Emma told me about her work at Children's Mercy Hospital, about the kids she worked with, many of whom had visible differences like mine. She spoke with such passion about her patients that I found myself leaning forward, completely absorbed. "There's this one little girl, Mia," Emma said, her eyes lighting up. "She's 7, and she has severe burns from a house fire. Like you. And you know what she told me last week? She said, 'Miss Emma, I look like a superhero who fought a dragon.' Can you imagine? That kind of courage in a 7-year-old. She sounds amazing." I said honestly, "She is." And you know what else? She asked me to bring in pictures of other people who survived fires and are living amazing lives. I've been thinking about creating a wall in the pediatric burn unit. Survivor stories or something. Would you maybe consider letting me include your story? If we continue seeing each other, I mean, not to pressure you or anything. She was rambling now, a slight blush creeping up her cheeks, and it was the most endearing thing I'd ever seen. "I'd be honored," I interrupted softly. Emma's smile could have lit up the entire restaurant. We talked through dinner, then dessert, then coffee. Mr. Kim had discreetly checked on us twice, both times with a knowing smile that suggested he was pleased with how things were going. The restaurant was starting to empty out, but neither of us wanted to leave. "Can I ask you something?" Emma said, stirring her coffee absently. "Anything. Marcus said you work from home mostly, that you don't like going out much. Is that because of how people react to you?" Her directness should have made me uncomfortable, but instead, it felt refreshing. No one ever asked me these questions so openly. "Yes," I admitted. "It's easier to hide. Safer. Less painful." Emma nodded slowly. "I get that. But, Daniel, can I tell you something I've learned from my patients? The kids who hide their differences, who let fear dictate their lives, they're the ones who struggle most. But the ones who face the world head-on, who refuse to let other people's ignorance define them, they're the ones who thrive. That's easier said than done when you're 7 than when you're 28 and have years of rejection behind you." I said, not unkindly. "Fair point," Emma conceded. "But you know what? You're here tonight. You came on this blind date, even though you were probably terrified. That takes guts." "I almost didn't come," I confessed. "Marcus had to practically beg me." "Well, remind me to thank Marcus," Emma said with a smile, "because I'm really glad you did." The sincerity in her voice made my chest tight. "Even after I kept you waiting for over an hour because of a mix-up?" "Especially then," she said. "It means you didn't give up. You could have left after what happened with that awful woman. Yes, Mr. Kim told me about that when I asked why you were so late. You could have just gone home. But you didn't. You came upstairs anyway." "Mr. Kim is very persuasive," I said with a small smile. "Or maybe you wanted to," Emma suggested gently. "Maybe part of you was tired of hiding." She was right, of course. Some part of me had been desperate for this. For connection, for acceptance, for the chance to be seen as more than my scars. "Can I ask you something now?" I said, "Shoot. Why did you agree to this blind date? You're beautiful and kind and successful. You could have anyone. Why let Marcus set you up?" Emma laughed, a sound like wind chimes. "Okay, first of all, any was a huge exaggeration. Second, I've tried the whole dating app thing, and it was a disaster. Everyone's so focused on superficial stuff. Height, looks, money. I wanted something different. I wanted to meet someone real. And you thought a blind date was a way to do that?" "Marcus told me you were a good person," Emma said simply. "He said you were kind, loyal, brilliant at what you do, and that you'd survived something terrible but came out stronger. He also said you'd probably try to cancel at the last minute because you don't think you're good enough for anyone." I winced. "Marcus talks too much." "Marcus cares about you," Emma corrected. "And he was right. You tried to hide from this, didn't you?" "Maybe," I admitted. "Well, I'm glad you failed," Emma said, reaching across the table to touch my hand. The scarred one. The gesture was so natural, so unbothered, that tears pricked my eyes. No one touched me voluntarily. No one. Emma, My voice broke. "Hey," she said softly. "It's okay. I know tonight was probably overwhelming. But Daniel, I want you to know something. When I look at you, I don't see scars. I mean, I see them, obviously, but they're not what I see. You know what I notice? Your eyes. They're kind but guarded, like you're waiting for the world to hurt you again. Your hands. You have the long fingers of someone who creates things. The way you listen to me talk about my work. Really listen like it mattered. That's what I see." I couldn't speak. I literally couldn't form words past the lump in my throat. "Too much?" Emma asked, pulling her hand back slightly. "Sorry, I tend to be a bit intense." "No," I managed. You're perfect." She blushed again, that beautiful pink that made her look younger somehow. "I'm definitely not perfect, but I think we might be good together, if you're willing to take a chance." "I'm terrified," I admitted honestly. "Me too," Emma said. "First dates are scary. But you know what? Let's make a deal. How about we promise to be honest with each other? No games, no pretending. Just real. I can do real," I said, feeling something unfurl in my chest, something that felt dangerously like hope. "Good," Emma said, checking her watch. "Oh, wow, it's almost midnight. I have an early shift tomorrow. But Daniel, I'd really like to see you again, if you want to." "I want to," I said immediately. "More than anything." We exchanged numbers, made plans for the following weekend, and walked out of the restaurant together. Mr. Kim was waiting by the door. "I hope you both had a wonderful evening," he said with a warm smile. "We did," Emma said. "Thank you for everything, Mr. Kim, especially for finding Daniel." "It was my pleasure, Miss Sullivan. Sometimes the universe just needs a little help connecting the right people." As Emma and I stood outside the restaurant saying our goodnights, she suddenly turned to me. "Can I hug you?" The question surprised me. "You want to hug me?" "Very much," she said. "If that's okay." I nodded, not trusting my voice. Emma stepped forward and wrapped her arms around me, and for the first time in years, I let someone close. Really close. She smelled like lavender and kindness, and when she pulled back, she was smiling. "Good night, Daniel Park," she said. "I'm really glad Marcus set us up." "Me too," I said. "Even if he did almost give me a heart attack with the whole blind date thing." Emma laughed. "Text me when you get home safe, okay?" "I will." I watched her get into a taxi, and she waved at me through the window until the car turned the corner and disappeared from sight. 6 months later, I stood in the pediatric burn unit at Children's Mercy Hospital, looking at the wall Emma had created. "Survivor Stories," it said across the top in cheerful, colorful letters. There were photos of dozens of burn survivors living full, happy lives. Athletes, teachers, parents, artists. And there, in the center, was a photo of me, not hiding, not ashamed. Just me. Below my photo was a quote Emma had asked me to write. "Scars are not the end of your story. They're proof that you survived the chapters that try to stop you." "It's perfect," Emma said, slipping her hand into mine. 6 months, and I still marveled at how naturally she touched me, how completely unafraid she was of my scars. "Do you really think it helps?" I asked. "The kids, I mean." "Daniel, you have no idea," Emma said, her eyes bright. "Mia talks about you all the time. She calls you the dragon fighter, and she's not the only one. Having real people, real stories, it gives them hope." I never thought my scars could be something positive. I admitted, "They're not just positive, they're powerful," Emma said. "You survived, Daniel. You rebuilt your life. You learned to code, you have a successful career, and you're helping inspire kids who are terrified they'll never be normal again. That's incredible." I pulled her closer, still amazed that this brilliant, beautiful woman chose me. Every day, I expected to wake up and find it had all been a dream. But every day, she was still there, still smiling at me like I was the most important person in the world. "You know what's crazy?" I said. "What?" "If that mix-up at the restaurant hadn't happened, if I'd met you right away, I might have been too scared to really talk to you. But after Jessica's rejection, after thinking the worst had already happened, I had nothing left to lose. I could just be myself. Emma considered this. Maybe Mr. Kim's universe theory was right. Maybe everything happened exactly as it was supposed to. Maybe, I agreed, or maybe I just got really, really lucky. We both did, Emma said, standing on her tiptoes to kiss my cheek, the scarred one. She did that a lot, and every time it felt like a small miracle. That evening, we went back to Crown and Oak for dinner. Mr. Kim was there, and his face lit up when he saw us walking together. Mr. Park, Miss Sullivan, how wonderful to see you both. We wanted to thank you, Emma said warmly. If you hadn't told Daniel about the mix-up that night, we might never have found each other. Mr. Kim waved his hand dismissively, but he was clearly pleased. I only did what was right, but I am glad to see you both so happy. Will you be dining with us this evening? Actually, I said, pulling Emma closer, we were hoping to book the Pearl Room for a special occasion. Emma looked at me in surprise. Special occasion? Did I forget something? No, I said, my heart pounding, but I'm hoping you'll remember this. I led her to the Pearl Room, the same room where we'd first met 6 months ago. Mr. Kim had helped me prepare it earlier, and now it was filled with candles and flowers, soft music playing in the background. Daniel, Emma said, her voice uncertain. What's going on? I took both her hands in mine, these scarred, imperfect hands that she taught me to see as beautiful. Emma Sullivan, I began 6 months ago. I came to this restaurant expecting the worst. I'd spent years believing I wasn't worthy of love, that my scars made me unlovable. And then I met you. Tears were already forming in her eyes. You taught me that scars don't define us, they refine us. You showed me that being vulnerable isn't weakness, it's courage. You made me believe, for the first time in my life, that I deserve happiness, that I deserve love. I got down on one knee, pulling out the ring I'd been carrying for weeks, waiting for the perfect moment. I know it's fast. I know some people will say 6 months isn't long enough. But Emma, when you spent years in darkness, you recognized light immediately. And you are my light. You are my hope. You are my future. Emma was crying now, her hand covering her mouth. Emma Sullivan, will you marry me? For a moment, she just stood there, tears streaming down her face. Then she laughed that beautiful wind-chime laugh and dropped to her knees in front of me. Yes, she said, wrapping her arms around me. Yes, yes, yes. 1,000 times yes. I slid the ring on her finger with shaking hands. And then we were both laughing and crying, holding each other in the middle of the Pearl Room, while Mr. Kim discreetly applauded from the doorway. I love you, I whispered against her hair. I love you so much. I love you too, Emma said. My dragon fighter, my survivor, my husband-to-be. 1 year later, I stood at the altar watching Emma walk down the aisle toward me. She was beautiful in her simple white dress, her auburn hair loose around her shoulders the way I loved it. But what struck me most was her smile, that same genuine, light-up-the-room smile she'd given me on our first date. Marcus stood beside me as my best man, leaning over to whisper, I told you she was special. You did. I acknowledged. Thank you for pushing me, for not giving up on me. That's what friends do, Marcus said. Although I have to admit, that mix-up at the restaurant was pure luck. I still can't believe there was another Marcus Park making a reservation the same night. I glanced over at the guests and spotted Mr. Kim sitting in the third row, beaming with pride. Next to him was Jessica. Yes, that Jessica, who had actually apologized to me months later after Emma had tracked her down. She'd been going through a terrible time in her life and had taken out on me. I'd forgiven her because Emma had taught me that holding on to anger only hurts yourself. But the best part of the wedding wasn't the flowers or the music or even the moment I said, I do. It was when we turned to face our guests and I saw them, dozens of children from the burn unit, along with their families. Emma had invited them all, and they were cheering louder than anyone. Little Mia was in the front row, wearing a princess dress and a huge smile. When she saw me looking at her, she made a dragon-fighting motion with her fist and grinned. I laughed, feeling more joy than I'd ever thought possible. As Emma and I danced our first dance as husband and wife, She looked up at me with those kind, beautiful eyes and said, "Are you happy?" I didn't know it was possible to be this happy. I answered honestly. "Good," she said, resting her head on my shoulder. "Because this is just the beginning, Daniel Park. We have a whole lifetime ahead of us." A lifetime of what? Of proving that love sees past scars, past pain, past everything the world says should matter. A lifetime of showing those kids that happy endings are real. A lifetime of being exactly who we're meant to be together. I held her closer, this incredible woman who had taken my broken, scarred heart and shown me it was beautiful, who had taught me that the worst night of my life, that humiliating, painful rejection, had been necessary to lead me to the best night of my life. I used to think my scars were a curse. I told her that they'd keep me from ever being truly happy. And now, Emma asked, now I think they were a map, I said, leading me exactly where I needed to be, to this moment, to you. Emma smiled, and in that smile, I saw our entire future. The challenges we'd face, the joy we'd share, the children we might have, the lives we'd touch. All of it possible because one night, at a restaurant called the Crown and Oak, a kind waiter had said the words that changed everything. "The other guest has been looking for you all night, and she'd been worth the wait."